Hello, good morning, and you are welcome to the second webinar of the Nigerian Plant Breeders Association. My name is Muhammad Yahya, and I'm the Publicity Secretary of the association. Today, we'll be presenting on a topic that's very close to our heart, which is how we can feed 2.5 billion Africans by 2050. Moderating the session for the day will be Professor Peter Ipok-Odion, who is a plant breeder at the University of Calabar. Without much ado, let me hand over the proceedings to Professor Ipok-Odion. Prof, you are welcome.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you to today's webinar, which is actually the second in the Nigerian Plant Breeders webinar series. And we are focused on, for this particular webinar, we will be focused on the theme of this series, which is breeding crops to feed 2.5 billion Africans by 2050. And for today, we have two distinguished scholars sharing with us their thoughts on demand-led plant variety development. First, to deliver his paper is our distinguished professor, a scientist who have been busy on this, who indeed have been put among those who put together the framework for demand-led breeding, which is really the new frontier that is really, guiding all our efforts, which will really help us in delivering on the promise to feed our teeming population. He will be speaking on demand-led plant variety design for emerging markets in Africa. I will introduce to you Professor Hussein Shimelis. Just permit me to give a short introduction of this distinguished scientist. Professor Hussein Shimelis is a professor of plant breeding, and also he is the South African is the chair of the crop science department or University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. In his role, he is actually the chair of the South African Sugarcane Research Institute. And the institute is part of the International Demand-Led Breeding Team that recently launched product profiles as a guide for plant breeding practitioners. You get what I'm talking about now. Since late 2019, Professor Shimelis, with the demand-led working group, has been developing guidelines for developing and communicating product profiles that are applicable in a range of markets, clients, crops, and environments. Professor Shimelis played a major role in the demand-led training manual and led the work on the key unit of the manual called Variety Design and Standards. Professor Shimelis, in his role as an academic, has graduated 40 doctoral graduates, 30 masters, and 11 honor students, and have mentored several postdoc fellows from all over Africa. Professor Shimelis indeed is a valuable asset for us in Africa. We cherish Professor Shimelis. And between the period 2017 and 2022, very recently, Professor Shimelis has been named among the top 500 authors in terms of scholarly output in Africa in the natural and biological sciences. In 2020, Professor Shimelis was named as the top Africa 20 most influential plant breeders in Africa. We are very proud and honored to have this distinguished scientist speak with us this morning on demand-led plant variety design for emerging markets in Africa. Professor Shimelis, the floor is yours.
Mohammed. Hello, Mohammed.
Hello, Mohammed.
Yes, I'm sharing the screen. The presentation will be coming up shortly.
Very well. Thank you.
I should thank you in the meantime, Prof. Peter. It was a generous introduction for you. I'm really happy that you invited me for this event. I mean, this week is very crucial week for Africa and the world, where our leaders are discussing about the key issues in Africa, in Equatorial Guinea, and the world leaders are also discussing about the World Economic Forum. So this is a very important week. And also at the same time, we are now today, we are gathering as plant breeders to discuss the key issues in food security affecting the continent at large. So what I did was, because of the electricity problems, the power problems in South Africa, I was not really leaving it for chance. And I prepared my speech, recorded and shared it with Mohammed, because that's really important. Even if I am cut off from this side, you will be still listening the presentation. So I'm sure Mohammed is managing. Otherwise, I will share from my side, Mohammed.
Prof, we've started sharing the screen.
Oh, you are starting?
Yes, Prof.
Please go ahead, then let's start, I think.
Yes, Mohammed.
Can you see the screen?
I think it's just only I can see from my side, only okay. Your folders.
We are yet to see Mohammed. While you are sharing the screen, while you do that, I want to, on behalf of our president, Professor Chidozie Egesi, welcome and appreciate Professor Shimelis for creating this time and sharing with us his thoughts, and also welcome our distinguished scientists from all over the country and other parts of Africa joining us today. Our president is struggling, is actually on board on a trip now, but he will be joining in as long as the network permits. So he sends his regards and his appreciation to every one of us here. Oh, I think, Mohammed, we have your slides now, Prof's slides now. So, Prof, can you take the slides from there, please?
Mohammed, the sound is not audible.
Mohammed.
Hello, Mohammed.
The sound.
Mohammed? Yes, the sound is not there.
Yeah, it's not audible.
The sound is not audible, please.
All right, Prof. I'm working on it.
Thank you.
Mohammed,
distinguished.
Prof, can we do the presentation from your own end?
Oh, yes, let me do that. I think
Yes,
let me
Prof.
share then.
Yes,
Let
Prof.
me share. Let me share. In fact, what I do, I will do to my real slides, and then I want to, because I'm here now, and let's pray that everything will go without any electricity interruption. So I am going to share my slide and tell me if it's showing, Mohammed.
Yes, Prof, it's showing.
It's showing.
Very
Okay,
well.
then I will put it. Yes, I will put it on the first slide. Yes. So, okay. All right. So I am on the first page. If you allow me, can I continue, Prof. Peter? Should I proceed?
Very well, Prof. Very well, Prof. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this really invite. It's very important day for us as plant breeders, just to discuss and share our thoughts on the business of plant breeding. And I have a little bit modified the title so that it really tells the story properly. I changed it a little bit and saying demand-led plant breeding, a business approach. So it's a really interesting theme, building crops to feed 2.5 billion Africans by 2050. And I appreciate the Nigerian Plant Breeders Association, the Secretariat, for arranging this webinar series. And Mohammed, also, thank you for the invite and also facilitating everything. And everyone is welcome to this presentation. As I was introduced earlier, my name is Shimalus Hussein from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. I'm the professor and chair of crop science in the School of Agriculture, Earth and Environmental Science. So please, you are just welcome to this important conversation and discussion. So briefly, I would like to talk about these issues. I will mention about the power of plant breeding for food security and livelihoods in Africa. And then I'll follow that, how that can be done through the demand-led breeding approach, which is a business model for plant breeders. And then I will describe briefly what are the enablers for plant breeders, the demand-led breeders. There are 3 enablers that I will discuss: education, proper variety design and product development, and also on policy support. I will touch somehow on the training design, the design or the DLB educational curricula, and product profiles briefly. Then also it's really important to name some cases, few examples that brings impact, or those projects that followed some DLB principles. I'll share some of our resources, and I'll end up my speech by summary and perspectives for possible discussion and engagement with the panel. So just to begin with the power of plant breeding, as all of us are, I think most of us are really plant breeders or seed technologists in one way or another. We notice that plant breeding is an important discipline in agriculture science, because this is a core activity that delivers farmer and market preferred high-yielding plant varieties, which are suitable, designed for various agroecological conditions. So plant breeders do a great job in agriculture development. And we all know that plant breeding brought green revolution during the first green revolution. Yield gains in Asia and South America in the 1960s were achieved, which were greater than 400%. And that impacted on food and nutrition security and enhanced livelihoods, especially in Asia and Latin America, obviously through the production of those dwarf wheat varieties with high harvest index and input responsive varieties. Likewise, we have the initiative, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, which was established some 10 years ago. And the goal is just to improve the livelihoods of many smallholder farmers in Africa through enhanced productivity, access to markets, and finance. And at the same time, as we know, plant breeding brings return on investment. And we have got many global breeding companies, seed companies, which derive a high amount of return on investment. And all in all, plant breeding brings economic, social, and environmental impact. So these are the key roles, power of plant breeding. When we come to Africa, what did plant breeding really do? We still have to do a lot in Africa because, you know, in the continent, we have got a yield gap. There is about 50% or higher yield gap between what's possible and what's realized now. So in order for us to achieve food security and improved livelihoods for many smallholder farmers in Africa, we need to use modern crop varieties and then acceptable production inputs. But these new varieties must be adopted by smallholder farmers, and they should be also marketed in local or regional or even international markets. That's when now we can say the impact of breeding and genetic innovations is realized. If not, then really plant breeding is not really doing much in the continent. So with that now, taking that into consideration, when we check many references, publications, and reports, the reports are really very shocking. The adoption rate of modern varieties in Africa is less than 35%, which is far below when you compare it to Asia and Latin America. 80%, some 80% adoption rate of new varieties, modern varieties by growers. And in Asia, it's about 60%. So we have to do a lot in order to reach that level. But how can you enhance then the adoption rate? That should be now the next topic now. The business of plant breeding, how we do plant breeding must be responsive to farmers and market requirements. And that requires us to do demand-led breeding or demand-led approach. We need to follow demand-led approach. And what are these demand-led breeding approaches? In fact, they are a combination of a good education, proper variety design and product development, and favorable policy supports. So this, I call them as enablers for plant breeders: education, good variety design and product development, and policy support system. DLB is about clients, about stakeholders, the value chain, and experts who are technical or non-technical, and it considers all the needs of these parties. So demand-led breeding is really about the stakeholders. It involves many of these stakeholders. So what is then the next generation, the new generation of plant breeders should do? They must understand the science and the business domains. It's not only the science of it. We need to focus ourselves on the business aspects in order to transform the public and private sector plant breeding and seed systems in the continent and internationally. So then the next talk will be, what is in demand-led breeding? What is demand-led breeding? Just for our understanding, in the sake of the audience, I'm asking this question, and your answer can be for your own. Is there a business school for plant breeders? Is there a business school for plant breeders? You can think for the moment, and your answer, I understand, can be a yes or no. And I should conquer that. I will conquer with most of you. Your answer could be no. Really, there is no business school, the business administration or business management for plant breeders. Really, there is no business school for us as such. So in the absence of that, then what do? Then we need to pick some business approach or some business model. And then when it comes to the business model of plant breeding, demand-led plant breeding is really a very important approach or a model for plant breeders. And this was, in fact, designed or created through a partnership. It involved international partners from Switzerland, Australia, and African partners. So the partners were interested in answering one thing. They wanted to answer this: how can modern crop varieties contribute to food security, local and regional markets in Africa? So this is a very big question to answer. And I think this is also the question all of you may ask as plant breeders or as agriculturists, agronomists, or crop scientists at large. So the DLV was really about answering this. How can modern crop varieties contribute to food security, local and regional markets in Africa? So then now the team, the partners realized that there are three important enablers for plant breeders to do. One is the right education. We should have a proper postgraduate education or professional development in plant breeding, which means on the business of plant breeding. Second, we should follow proper variety design and product development through state-of-the-art knowledge, methodologies, and tools. So if we follow the knowledge, methodologies, and tools, then we can design acceptable variety that can be taken by the farmers and the market at large. Then all of this, the education or our variety design, is dependent on one thing. It's dependent on favorable policy support and investment. So DLB talks about these three issues in detail. It describes this in detail: education, variety design, and the policy support systems, which I will also briefly describe in the coming few slides. So to begin with, the DLB has got its own educational curriculum. It has designed the program, it has its own program design. And this program was designed by the African educators. And interestingly, we have published a book. I will share it in the coming slide. And that book touches very critical units or modules that guide plant breeders. The first unit is the core principles of demand-led breeding. What are the principles of demand-led breeding? It compares demand-led breeding against participatory plant breeding. It's not the same, as we know. It's not participatory plant breeding is not the same as DLB. And in fact, there are some similarities, obviously, but there are also quite different differences between DLB and participatory plant breeding. It talks about the benefits and risks of following demand-led breeding approaches. It describes the visioning and foresight. As breeders, how can you set your breeding goals? How do you vision, how do you foresight in order for you to set breeding goals? Then it also asks, who are your clients' needs and value chains? It means, how do you determine your markets or your market segments? It's really important. Before you do breeding, you need to know your market. Who is your buyer? And what are the market segments of these clients or users? It also describes on variety design and product profile. This is technically how to breed. How to breed your crop variety. And how do you also use product profiles in your breeding programs? It describes about the breeding objectives. It describes about trait prioritization. Sorry, let me use my pointer. It describes about the, I should have used, okay. So sorry, I'm sorry to hold you. I should have used it earlier also. So it's about variety design and product profiles. Here, we discuss about the breeding objectives. What are the breeding objectives? And how do you prioritize your traits in your breeding programs? And at the same time, it defines the external standards. You know, when you breed, there are some external factors. What are these? How do you judge? How do you control them in advance in order to achieve success in variety design and release? Then also, how do you study the market demand? How do you know the differentiation of your traits in the market? This is discussed in the variety design and product profile model. Then it also teaches on the variety development strategy and planning. What is a breeding stage plan? What are the timelines in breeding programs? And how do you define a critical path analysis? It means, how can you achieve or release a new variety in a short period of time possible using the, say, speed breeding technology or biotechnology approach, and you name it. Then it also discusses about registration issues. How do you register your varieties? Who are the registration agents? How do you approach them? And when do you have to approach them? it also touches this aspect, the breeding investment. As we know, as breeders, one of our challenges is to get funds, monies for our research project. So it teaches how to make cases in order when you apply for some breeding projects. So how can you make the cases? And how can you influence decisions also in order to have favorable outcome from your application? In the end, it teaches on the monitoring, evaluation, and learning. And I think this is new for plant breeders, that we don't have a monitoring, evaluation, and learning programs in many breeding projects or activities. So it describes about the KPI, the key performance indicators. How do you define them in a breeding program? Then how can you also track, follow the adoption of your varieties in the production areas? Then how can you communicate your achievements or failures for that matter? Failures and achievements can be communicated. Failures can be a lesson for the other plant breeders. So that is done through the M, E, and L approach. So these are the 7 important modules which are captured in the textbook, which really transforms plant breeders having this understanding. And as we said, product profiles are really important in our breeding programs. And sorry to say this, I think in most of the young breeders, or even in some breeding projects, we don't have product profiles. But we cannot breed a variety if we don't have correct product profiles. That's important. And what are these product profiles? Product profiles are a technical specification of a new variety. So it means you need to specify all the details of that variety that you are planning to breed. It includes a set of technical attributes with quantitative measures and qualitative descriptions. So there are some measures which are quantitative, at the same time qualitative. It's an innovative and structured approach to capture a new variety profile. So we need to have that profile for us. It includes the trait prioritization. You need to prioritize your traits, the external standards, and how do you validate your product profile considering the changes, the trends in the environment, in our working situation. Normally, product profiles are also translated into breeding objectives. So our breeding objectives are working hand in hand with the product profiles. Product profiles are, in fact, they are communication tools. They will allow us to communicate what we are doing in our breeding programs with technical and non-technical stakeholders. So there are a set of, they define common goals for everyone who is needing the new variety and the commercialization. Who are involved in developing a product profiles in your breeding project? So when you develop a product profile, you don't do it alone. You need to have the audience, the right audience, which is the design team. Obviously, these are the experts who are the design team. You need to engage the research and development management, which means the research and development management should be part of the product profile. We need to have the variety development team who breeds the varieties. The technology transfer or the extensionists should be part of your breeding project. The seed scaling organization, the value chain representatives, of course, the investors and donors who are giving you the monies in order to design your variety and commercialize it. So product profile, if you have got a proper product profile, then one has to involve this audience as much as possible. I know it's not always easy, but we should aim this audience. So the product profile of that new variety, it includes the purpose of your variety, the crop production management system, and its technical attribute. Essentially, product profiles are captured with a template, with captured template. And these are two-page template. The first page is about, it defines your clients and markets. Who are your clients? Who are your markets? So that's the first template. The second one is, sorry, technical specification of the variety. So it means it technically asks you how to design your variety with a proper specification. So it's about the specification of the variety or variety design and technical specification. As I said, it has two components, the client and the market. It has got the details of the design team, the descriptors of your variety, the target clients and use, who are your clients and what do they need your variety, for what purpose. Then the target crop producers and production system. Sorry. So then the second aspect is a technical specification of the variety, which means your variety design and technical specification. It includes your clients, the driver of their choice, trait category, preference, trait demand, and then trait description, then the benchmark variety or the standard variety. In the end, it gives some performance required compared to the benchmark variety. Sorry. So these are the second component, and this are summarized in these two tables. Sorry, I'm sure you may not see them clearly, but we will share these templates through our website, and Dr. Nasser Yao, who will be also presenting the second, he will communicate with you about perhaps a website and where you can access this. So in the first slide, you will see that we define the product profile. Who are the clients in the markets? So it means the client and the market should be defined here in these green areas where you capture the information. And here you have who are the design team or the lead, who are the product profile descriptors, what are the product profile, name of your crop or product, the name of the crop, the country, the geographical region, the market segment, the name of the variety that's to be replaced, the product, the date the product profile was created. Then the second aspect has a target client and use. You should define who are my client and what do they use it for. Then the target crop production and production system, the number of the farmers, the percentage ratio of the male and to female farmers, and so on. So all these are parts of your clients and market. In fact, in the design, in the product profile design team, you need to specify the names from 1 to X with the areas of expertise and then name of the organization where they are working. So this is just a one-pager product profile which captures the clients and the market. Then the second one is a product profile, the variety design and technical. Essentially, this is what you breed for. As a breeder, this is what you are looking for. You should ask, who is my client or the customer? Is it the farmer, the transporter, the processor, the retailer, consumer, you name it. Then you will ask, what is their driver to take your variety? What do they really need from your variety? Is it productivity? Is it forage or fodder value? Is it crop management and harvesting? Is it for market value? Is it for extended storage or storage value? So all these are their drivers. So you should know what drives them to take your variety. Then you need to categorize that trait. If it's a productivity, obviously it should be yield gain. What is your yield gain compared to what is up there in the market, outside the market? And then we need to know also, is it really about stress resistance, about stress tolerance? So these are the trait category which can be done all the way depending on your clients. Then you should define the preference group. Who needs your trait? Is it a woman, a man, the youth, or a combination of them? So one has to define that in order to target, to tackle also the issue of the preference group or gender issues in a new breeding program. Essentially, as I said, the traits should be also prioritized. Your traits can be prioritized as essential or must-have traits or niche opportunity. Does your trait has some niche going forward, or is it a value added or added value trait, or is it a winning trait that you must have it in your breeding project. So it has to be prioritized, and you have to tackle based on your priority issues. Then we have to define the target traits here, the economic yield. Is it the economic yield? Is it the fertilizer efficiency or the grain size or otherwise? So you should list them as much as possible. Then how do you describe the traits? If it's yield, you should give it a unit. Is it kilogram per unit area, tons per hectare, and so on. So one has to decide, do give it the trait description. If it's a qualitative trait, say, if it's a quality or nutritional traits, it can be a scale or a category. So it depends on what traits you are dealing with. Then when you breed, you need a benchmark variety or a standard or a check variety, which is out in the market. Because anything that you breed should be compared with that benchmark variety. And then the performance required in your variety can be less than even the benchmark, provided that you have included some valuable traits, unique or novel traits, which were not existing in the early. It doesn't matter, because in some areas, people are not really happy to have a high yield. They could be more considerate in terms of the quality, the taste, the eating quality. It matters really. So it can be less than the benchmark, provided that you have integrated a useful trait in that variety. Sometimes your variety as the benchmark, as I said, depending on the trait. In most cases, you should have excelled. You should beat what is in the market or what is available. So it can be higher than that. So essentially, this template is about for the breeder. It guides the breeder. It really guides the breeder. Define your client, define the driver, the trait category, who need your traits, how do you prioritize it, what is the scale of that trait to be described, and what is your benchmark variety in the market, and then what performance are you really looking in your variety. So that gives you an overall idea of breeding your variety. So product profiles are really, really important tools in our breeding programs. So having said all those theoretical aspects, or really a general understanding, I should really give some examples which can be considered as incentives or something that really helps others to follow on the demand-led approach. I'm really sorry that if I didn't mention some of your projects, it's because of the time. I will really be happy that I can say about your breeding project and success, but that's not the case here. So the first example is the white gold. It's referred as white gold for a bean variety. It's regarded as a white gold. It's a common bean. It's a case of common bean value chains market corridors in East Africa. So this white gold is a common bean, dry common bean variety, which there are a couple of varieties released in Ethiopia. And the white ones are highly preferred because they have been, common bean is cultivated by almost 3.6 million smallholder farmers in Africa. And they are highly commercially important crops. And you know that it goes to the Middle East. It's exported to the Middle East. In 2004, the annual export from the white bean, from the dry white common bean, was 8 million USD per year. And that climbed to 140 million USD per annum in 2018. So you can see that even from one crop, from the bean, there is a possible cash gain, so getting hard currencies in Africa, if we do the right thing and if we have demand-led varieties. So, and in fact, that also led to the development of a large number of small-scale enterprises in Ethiopia, where smallholder farmers are growing the bean as outgrowers. They can be regarded as outgrowers. They grow the crop and supply the produce to the market as outgrowers. So based on that, then they may make a business out of the bean production and marketing. So if you see these slides, just as an example, these are the data from the FAO from 2020, and it shows the area of production, the total area of production, the total production and yield gains in bean through breeding from 2003 to 2020. So I'm sorry if you cannot see them. I think you can see them on your screen, most likely. So you see that the production, the production and the yield were very low in the first, in 2003 compared to now. And this has inclined significantly. And you can see that the yield now in Ethiopia and in Tanzania is approaching about 1.8 tons per hectare. I think it's 1.4 in Tanzania. But it's a significant change from 0.6 to 1.8 tons. So we needed that kind of change, transformation in crop productivity at large in order to have the impact. So it has significantly pushed from this level to this in both countries. Essentially also, when we see the commercial value, the total production and the value in the market, it also changed from 2006 to 2020. It's low and climbed here, somehow now this amount. So in Ethiopia, there is an export of almost close to 1.5 million USD, no, 150 million USD a year from the export, the marketing of bean alone. So imagine if that happens to other crops, other critical crops, which can be exported to within the region, outside of the region through demand-led breeding, then it brings significant return to investment and economic development in these countries. And the second example is, again, the bean. You know, we're counting on the beans because these are commercial crops and they have been really had some very unique value for farmers as well. So in Uganda, they have released the iron and zinc enriched climate smart varieties, the 5 varieties, some were bush type and some are climbing types. They were released first in Uganda, but they have been commercialized in Kenya, Ethiopia, Rwanda, and other East African countries. So the yield gains were from 20 to 49. That was significant. And all of them had farmers' preferences. And in fact, they also ensured production, local sustainable production of bean in these countries. One of these varieties, the RW2245, is highly adopted in Rwanda, and it's acclaimed to have excellent nutrition and incomes to smallholder farmers in that country. So who developed the varieties? In fact, plant breeding is a collaborative effort. So it was done by the PABRA, as you know, some of you, the Pan-Africa Bean Research Alliance, the National Agriculture Research Organization, NARO, that's in Uganda, CIAT, and also the funders, thanks to the funding opportunities by the USAID and Feed for the Future and the Tropical Legume 3. So these combined efforts and activities are the ones which allowed to the release of these varieties in East Africa. Then the other one, which I was a little bit biased to show here, is really about sorghum. I think most of you know about sorghum, and sorghum is a very valuable crop in the drier regions in Africa, West, East, Central, or Southern Africa. So one of our alumnus, Dr. Emmanuel Mrema from Tanzania, he released a striga-resistant sorghum varieties recently in 2018. And his varieties, as you can see from here, this is one of his varieties. And then, as you know, striga is very stubborn, very difficult weed in most cereal crop production. So Emmanuel's variety had resistance for that. You see that this field is overtaken by the weed. It's really overtaken by the weed, and the crop is forgone already. You can't harvest anything from this crop. This photo was from northern Ethiopia that I took from northern regions in Ethiopia. So this is the harvest that Emmanuel achieved. Striga-resistant varieties, high-yielding, 3 to 4 tons per hectare. In fact, you can also use a biocontrol agent, Fusarium oxysporum, one of the biocontrol fungi. You can coat the seed when you grow the coated seed, it can also destroy the weed, the striker weed in the field. So it was developed by the TARI, the Tanzania Agricultural Research Institute, which is based in Tumbi in Western Tanzania, and us, the African Center for Crop Improvement, because Emmanuel was a PhD scholar with us. So we're really happy and proud with these varieties. So DLB really is a life changer, really a game changer. We have been getting this feedback from many people who who use the resource of DLB. It's a game changer. And we have developed resources that all of you who are perhaps attending this presentation should read and use them. And this resource include the textbook. We have the business of plant breeding. This textbook is now available freely online. You can download it from CABI website. And also we have got some hard copies that we can share with some of you. We have few copies with us if you want to have a hard copy of the book. It really tells about those 7 units I discussed with you earlier, those aspects that from the principles to monitoring and evaluation. Then we also have got the templates, the product profile templates. Please download it from our website, or you just drop us email, then we can share the product profile. We have trained a significant number of alumni through the demand-led breeding, and about 400 we have some 400 of them who came from the 24 workshops. So, and we really consider them as our resources because they know now the principles, and most of them are using these principles as such. We have the community of practice, few community of practice from Eastern, Central, and Southern, and Western African on different crops. Please check those and also establish connection with them and in terms of guidance and also collaboration. And I think also as an educator of plant breeding, as a professor, it's really very, very important. And I prescribe that those institutions who offer plant breeding should integrate demand-led approaches into their curriculum. It's really important because if you don't know, if you don't teach your students, the young generation, in how to make business out of plant breeding, you are really leaving them a void in terms of their training and specialization. So please try to include it in your curriculum. It can be in your honors or master's or PhD programs to teach about demand-led breeding. We have got the resources. We have got the textbook. We have got, as I said, even the alumni now all over Africa. We are thinking also further workshops, trainings in the public and private sectors. And in order for us to keep the sustainability, the legacy of the demand-led breeding, we have initiated a Pan-African hub, which is launched at the Bioversity CIAT campus in Nairobi, Kenya. Dr. Nasser is now coordinating that process because he is working in that institution as well. So we have got the Pan-African hub, which we want it to grow and develop it to be a regional initiative. And then you can also consult our website, as I said before, which is shown here. And everything, as I said today, this and including other resources, publications, a community of practice are accessible. So let me summarize my talk by providing few aspects in a way of summary and perspectives. I think we all agree that Africa needs the development, release, and dissemination of demand-led varieties. And these varieties should be demand-led in such a way that they should be used by the farmers and the marketplace. It's only then we can transform agriculture in the region. So we really agree on that. The role of the breeders is not underestimated. It should be continuous, and it should continue to deliver demand-led varieties. But let's follow demand-led approaches. I think when you follow demand-led approaches, we know our stakeholders, we know how to design our variety, how to develop and commercialize. So we need to know what are the demand-led approaches in our breeding programs, because this approach promotes ultimately variety adoption. And so adoption means clearly impact. If there is impact, then that's where the transformation is happening in agriculture, in the green revolution of Africa. So what we need going forward is really committed investment. We needed that committed investment from the public and private sectors so that our training centers, our breeding programs, and crop improvement enterprises are empowered significantly in order to bring impact. Because at times we start somewhere and we stuck because we don't have committed or continued support, financial support, especially for the young breeders. And then we need to emphasize the public-private partnership. It has to be really strengthened because that's a source of germplasm, expertise, links, and the full links to all the value chain. We also need to expand, strengthen our partnerships with NARS, the National Agricultural Research and Extension System, and the CGIAR should be really partnered in order to make meaningful research, training, and postgraduate supervision in the continent. And I think the last but not the least is this. Plant breeding should be a business. And I think when you do breeding in terms of teaching or those who are practicing breeders in order to develop variety and commercialize, let's really consider it as an entrepreneurial approach, as a business enterprise. It should bring some level of investment or income to the breeders. So it should be considered as a way of employment by doing the breeding and selling the seed yourself rather than really working for the government or looking for other opportunities that others will employ. So you can employ others, make entrepreneurship rather than get looking for other opportunities in order to employ yourself. And essentially, if you ask me that was not in my thinking, say 15 or 20 years ago, I don't have that thinking. It's only now I realize that in fact, plant breeding is a business. So please think about the entrepreneurial approach in the business enterprises. So I think I will be concluding my talk by presenting some of our initiatives and partners as a way of acknowledgement. And I should really thank many of the organizations, especially our funders, the Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture, the Crawford Fund, the Australian Center for International Agricultural Research, the University of Queensland. They have been at the forefront of funding the demand-led breeding, and at the same time also working with us to reach to this initiative and these ideas. And in fact, this is not my work. Remember, this is not myself. It's not me, or it's not only University of KwaZulu-Natal. It's a regional initiative. It's a regional initiative thanks to the event organizers that it really reminds me that this is an African initiative for the Africans, and it involves many partners and collaborators where you can see the logo here. And I thank them for what they did and also what they do going forward. I think this was my brief talk, and I hope I didn't rush that much. I think I have finished my conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Should I close, Mohammed?
Yes, Prof, you may close.
Should I stop sharing it?
Prof, you may stop sharing it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. We thank you very much, Prof, for your excellent presentation and for really allowing us to have a greater understanding of what it is with demand-led breeding. We hope that although we missed out of the Green Revolution, maybe it's our time now with this new approach, demand-led breeding in Africa, to really bring a significant impact on not just the yield now, but in terms of the need of the market. And with your word, maybe we make a paradigm shift to really train our plant breeders to know that plant breeding is not only a science and an art, it's both science and an art, it is also a business. Maybe that is very significant for us, that we see it as a business, and that will really bring the impact, both on the farm level as well as in the market. Thank you very much, Prof. We'd like to quickly go to the second presenter, so that after his presentation, I know our distinguished colleagues, we have questions we'd like to ask. After the second presentation, we will bring all those questions and have great interaction. Thank you very much. Our second presenter today is Dr. Nasir Yao. Dr. Nasir Yao is currently the Pan-African coordinator of the demand-led breeding portfolio based at the Alliance Biodiversity and SEAT DLB initiative of the Food Security Alliance that is founded by the Australian Center for International Agricultural Research, sponsored by the Crawford Fund, the Syngenta Foundation for Sustainable Agriculture, and Dr. Yao is also an educator group of plant breeders in Africa. Today, Dr. Yao, with his varied experience, he had worked at Becker Aerie Hub. He was also, interestingly, he was also at the Ivorian National Center for Agricultural Research before he moved to the International Agricultural Centers. So Dr. Nasir Yao will be presenting his work now. Dr. Nasir, you have about 20 minutes to do your presentation. Thank you very much. You have the floor.
Hello, am I on?
Yes, please, you are.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. And then I'm just going to shed a bit light on what Shimelis have explained, but mainly to show the value of smart breeding in demand-led plant breeding. The issue, or let's say the rationale behind even this presentation is like when you want to do really demand-led plant breeding, what are again the requirements, a kind of requirement that you should go through. And so that breeding in Africa being transformed. So, is it moving? Hello? Hello, am I on slide 2 on the
yes,
outline?
Dr. Yao, you are on the second slide.
Okay. Then my presentation will really cover the following topics. I give a kind of definition of roadmap. The definition has already been really defined, extended by Shimelis, and also have also a kind of definition about what smart breeding means, its content, and also its importance, because for those kind of inbreeding, we have so many jargon, and also for a common understanding of the participants here or of the people following the presentation, it's good to agree on some kind of definition. Later on, I will be moving to what is smart breeding and its implication is in demand-led plant breeding implementation. I'm going to select few steps over the demand-led plant breeding. That's the reason why first I will share the roadmap of what a typical implementation of demand-led plant breeding is doing. Okay, just to say that those kind of things works also in terms of smart breeding. I will be sharing some work that our alumni, few of them, even though few of them are selected, are really doing, and later on I will be having my concluding remarks. As we were saying, the DLB is the Food Security Alliance, Africa, Swiss, and also Australian Food Security Alliance. I'm not going to go to the partners, but you can see that there are European partners, Switzerland, and also African partners that are also listed here, as Shimelis has already explained. if what Shimelis has been explained has not been able for you to get the sense of what is really DLB, what I just want to tell you here is just to emphasize again on one thing, because it's always make a kind of confusion that what is a DLB. DLB is not PPP. It goes really beyond, as he was explaining. But also, most importantly, is the new lens of developing modern variety, high-performing crop life. It can even apply to livestock commodity. That's why I try to put just, it as a kind of emphasis here. That are really sold by smallholder and the market. Then is new way of developing a variety that can meet smallholder and market demand. Yeah. Down there, we can see that down here, I just want to share what I call the roadmap of demand-led plant breeding. Typically, we have a kind of 6 step doing demand-led plant breeding. The first is that we call visioning and foresight for setting breeding goal. I'm going to elaborate more when I'm going to do the implication with smart breeding. And also the second is understanding the client, the market, and also the commodity use. Here, this one is important. What we call commodity or crop use is also very key, because when we are doing, it look like in most cases we see crop as food, but when there are other type of let's say use that are really important, that we should think about it when we are doing demand-led plant breeding. And then one of the things is really before doing the breeding, before starting everything, what is really the business case for product development? Is it making really an economic sense also to make this product development? And then this one also is one of the key steps on the demand-led breeding. Shimelis can elaborate about product design, product profile, market segmentation, and those kind of things. And the step 5 that you can see is about really what is I can call the common practice that we are doing, product development strategy and also stage plan. You're going to see what the stage plan mean, and then, but this one is really what we are confident we as a breeder that we are commonly doing. The last one is monitoring and evaluation. This one also is not common, but it's something to go, because when we are having a kind of long process, when we are having some other people being part, the whole actor of the value chain, let's say being involved, it's a good at a certain moment, to do an evaluation, to learn, to draw the lesson, and let's proceed further. Then this one has not been also common, but it's also very key in the demand-led breeding plant approach. Now, what do I mean, or what I would like us to agree here when we talk about smart breeding? In the previous definition, is breeding by selection with marker and advanced reproductive technology. As you can see, that's what comes about is smart. But technically, what does it mean is the combination of what we so-call conventional breeding. Myself personally, I don't like this wording, but it's what we so-call conventional breeding with advanced molecular, genomic, and phenomic tools. Meaning, when we associate those kind of two things, which can be, and what would we understand by common breeding approach, it can be rapid generation advancement, double haploid, marker-assisted back-cross selection, marker-assisted recurrence selection, genomic selection, or even speed breeding or shuttle breeding. We have those kind of things. And again, as I was saying, the phenomic is really very key, because in kind of breeding, unless your phenotyping is really very, very accurate, you cannot reach even that much. And again, we can go even further when we talk about those advanced technology. It can be the biotechnique-based breeding technology, that can be marker-assisted breeding, genetic modification, and also gene editing. Yeah. For the genetic modification, I know that is a bit of controversial, even the gene editing, but at least the gene editing is having a kind of, let's say, good uptake from many countries, even though outside Africa, because he has a different way of modifying really the genetic thing. And all in all, what we want that what we mean by smart breeding is a package that can include all strategies used for release of innovating commodities, meaning beyond even those conventional, let's say those technical attributes that I just listed above, then is all the strategy that's it. Then finally, really, I think that's from what the Shimelis have been explaining. Then if you think about smart breeding, do breeding like the GLB approach. It's really the way of doing really in a nutshell and in a very, very simple manner. That's how to do, let's say, smart breeding. Apply the GLB approach and you'll be doing the smart breeding. Now, when I just want to take the first part, that's about vision for setting breeding rule. Why this thing is really important and how, let's say, using modern tool also can also help in doing those kind of things. We all know that breeding is really a long process. If we wait for things to happen to us or for the need to be there before that we started breeding, we might be really in trouble. Then when we have some kind of, and now we are blessed with technology, when we have the artificial or market intelligence, what you can do, you can just from now, even try to foresee what will be happening. I took the example of, let's say, the effect of climate on various aspects. You can see that there is some indirect effect, and also even involve a negative also added. What is here, and then I just want to raise up, is really the positive effect that is having, because based on this market intelligence or market survey that we are having, we have the different effect of the climate change, and then now we start putting what the strategy in place for us to be able to breed for those kind of the next generation of, or let's say, of crop and for resilience. And we can see that even with the market intelligence, you can see that it has also impact on land, impact on animal, and even the change in carbon stock. Yeah, I really put this slide just because to show you after the market intelligence that thing that you can do a kind of prediction, what will be really now the problem that we'll be facing going really forward. Now, when you get to those kind of the issue, either you see if you want to address the thing on the breeding side, either you have all the elements for you to do it or you don't have it. Then one of the key things is really what to do is to strengthening your pre-breeding program. In most cases, we like to rush to do things. We like to, because we want to go faster, and sometimes we do not see all and count for all the setup that you should be doing. That's why in this case, for example, envisioning and foresighting, strengthening the pre-breeding program is really very key. And what it will mean up is the variability enrichment. Yeah, I will show later on. This one are only just based on, how do you call it, our famous equation that is we breeder. I guess that most of the people participating today are breeders. Our famous equation that when we talk about variability enrichment, it's about genetic diversity also and improvement of those kind of things. Then what do? Either you introduce a new or an exotic gene platform elsewhere. Yes, it can happen sometime. Yeah, also having a kind of artificial variability creation. It's just because of giving, let's say, a variability. Because one of the key things for us as breeder is really variability. With no variability, I don't think that we can do things. If variability just died in this earth, I think that breeding is really just dead. Unless we are going to use a new mechanism of creating the variability, which in most cases is not really, let's say, helpful. Yes, the second thing is also to generate the genomic resources to develop them. Because when we really want to do proper breeding, the genomic resources have to be developed. Either you have them or not. But those genomic resources can include, let's say, something like marker development, also even some kind of reference genome establishment. And after this one, also to develop some kind of population. Population development is also key when we are doing the breeding, and mainly population with most variability. That's why I try to press and to harm on population like a nested association mapping population of magic population. Those are multi-parental, let's say, population that when they are carefully chosen based on your objective or what you want to have, you can have a kind of a very composite population with a kind of big variability internally. This one also, you are dealing with other type of how with the breeding or mainly with your specific objective. Now your population become much more, let's say, less variable and less variable. And then that's a kind of thing that we ought to do. Yes. One of the things that we are talking about is just population enhancement, because when you want to do also breeding, as we were saying, the type of the population, the quality of the population is really very key. What are really the current status in terms of allele, in terms of gene on really on your population? You can see that now I'm talking, let's say, exclusively talking about population. When we are talking about those kind of things, it's about really population. Population at really large is not really a single individual, because it's about managing all the genetic stock of those kind of things, and so that you can make a good benefit. Last but not least, there is the target population for environment. Those one, for me, I consider as some key thing or some prerequisites that should be known when you want to really, let's say, task your breeding program. I just put also across the graph that is there, just because for us, because he came also to some kind of debate for what is pre-breeding. Some people might say that pre-breeding is mainly, how do you call it, doing some kind of collecting genetic resources and doing also some gene plus screening, or some people might want it even to go beyond. I know that there are some people who consider that even variability enrichment also is part of the pre-breeding. But what I just really want to emphasize here is, like, before that you started your breeding per se, meaning doing your selecting your parent and cross them and then follow them, that if you call it that this one is the pre-breeding, there are so many things beyond that should be developed before. And that's what the fact that I was just trying to strengthen all those kind of things in those two slides. But basically, when you want to do now to make the business case, because as you were saying, what you do, you have seen that there is a need. You have seen that, okay, we need to breed for those kind of particular threat based on your market survey or your market intelligence survey. And then, but now, how are you going to make a business case? Why is it important really to make a business case? Because what you need to do is really to convince people, saying that we need to do those kind of things, even for donor, even for your manager. Then you have to develop really a business case to for this product to be developed. And then that's why even then, when you are going to do, before started this one, to say that we can go, what is really the strength of your breeding program? Because it's about, you are going to release the variety timely, and is it really the pre-breeding program that are enough, let's say strong enough for you, for it to serve the purpose? This one also is really key. I put up also the how do you call the breeder equation that we're calculating really the genetic gain. And but basically what I want here to show here, to go beyond all the trivial definition of what is the component are, is really to see how much progress is really achieved and how much can be achieved, because it's key. Sometimes we want to, let's say, to improve some traits, whereby we don't really have, let's say, big, let's say, progression. And in that time, what we can do, if we remember, after calculating our genetic game over some time, then we see that in fact, we are not making that much progress. And based on our market survey that we need to have a yield gap, for example, for this amount that we have to do, then what do? That's how it's key. How is key that before doing that, then we see now when we check our, how do you call it, breeder equation, when we talk about a selection intensity, do we have enough marker that can make us, even starting from a big population, to really have a high selection pressure so that the selection intensity really increase? When I was talking about, or from what we are having, what we are during our among our pre-breeding program, do we have enough genetic variation really to do it? If we don't have, how really we can really complement it and do all those kind of things? Yes, similarly to what is the selection accuracy, how efficiently are we really going to select the thing? What are the experimental design? What are the type of tool that we'll be using so that even the data collection, even the data, the data collection, the quality of the data that we are going to have there will really be efficient? Yes. And again, yes, do we have a mechanism for do some kind of speed breeding so that we can reduce, let's say, the interval for delivering, let's say, a kind of variety, either speed breeding or even shuttle breeding? Then we can see that that's where the combination data, even before, let's say, making the business case for variety development, you can see that all those kind of information are important based on your pre-breeding program and also based on the different component of the genetic gain that we are having. Yeah. When you are going to do now for product profile and trade prioritization and market segments, what is really we can use? I took some kind of random example here. Let's say that we said that threat with low genetic gain can be dropped or given a credit in a low credit in trade prioritization. That was about what I was just trying to say. If we have a trade that we cannot really improve it, but let's say that this threat also, because it's not to go blindly, then for this threat that is there, if we need it somehow or those kind of things, yes, if we don't drop it, let's just use let's say low credit in trade prioritization. But how do you do for those ones? Yeah, we know that when we have some kind of having some multiple threat selection, we use index selection. Yes, and here I was saying that threat with low genetic gain, yeah, we'll be allocating low weight in even those kind of how do you call it, a genetic selection. And then threat that are also negatively correlated. What do we do also? Then, but we give the weight according to the economic value and most importantly, at some kind of external standard. Yeah. I show here on the right with this yellow table, you can see that if there is a threat with low potential, for example, if unfortunately is among the regulation concept, the threat that are needed when you are really want to release or regulate for the regulation body, it's even though this threat is for low potential, you will be forced to use it. And this one is one kind of thing that you say also. Usually what we do is some kind of correlation analysis for indirect selection. Yes, this one will be mostly for threat that are hard to phenotype or negatively correlated. But in one and all, what we do when we are breeding smartly using the demand-led breeding approach, we have so many threats that are conflicting, and even if when we apply the index selection is not working well the way that worked, what we meant to do is to do the market segmentation. Meaning, instead of putting all those threats in one variety, try to split it in a specific market, in a specific niche, and then breed for it. That's why also here, market segmentation is really something that is key in the demand-led breeding approach. And that's why it's also one of the key components of breeding smartly. Yeah, For the product development strategy and stage gate system, this one is basically what we breeder we do the best, because that's how this one just imply the variety design, the stage plan, the timeline, and also the critical path that you were saying. And but along all those process, we have to use all those kind of key tools that we know. IVMAS at the beginning, if it's for single thread integration, or genomic selection if we have multiple thread and mainly with minor effect also to introduce. Then we have those kind of, and also the back-assisted backcrossing. If also we are also inputting a kind of disease resistance and marker-assisted recurrence selection, but also genome editing. Yeah, it's a tools that is really coming up those days, and then it's really widely used. And I think that this one is the thing that to think about it. It does not mean that applying gene editing is simple, like even the over method, because it goes with some constraint. Even doing it for each crop or for even each thread is not easy, but in any case, it's very efficient, and then we should do with it. And then, how do you do from during this process? Also, we'll be doing the high throughput phenotyping. When you see about when often at the line development screening, this one you have to do also some kind of phenotyping, small plot screening. Of course, along those kind of things, the type of phenotyping is not, let's say, the same. From the beginning, for example, okay, we can just rather, it's like when we are doing the selection pressure that we are just trying to do. What do you do at the beginning when we have several lines or those kind of things and you are progressing? Yeah, what is really the intensity of selection that you'll be applying, so that at least you go with lesser, let's say, line, because everything also is about budget. Because the more line you are using, the more replication that you'll be doing is also linked to a kind of budget. But the main point here is, in any case, if you want a timely delivery of what we are trying to do, we are forced also to use the high-end techniques like regarding the phenotyping. Here again, yeah, we are going to go to the index selection, because when you are breeding for multiple threads, then you are not, but all those kind of things will be based on economic value, thread classification. That's what mainly is meant by essential thread, add value thread, or yeah, those kind of winning thread. Yeah, then, and also a thread that are from the standard for, let's say, variety registration, for example. Then those kind of thread you cannot do anything with, then you have to have it. Then even in your index selection, you have to include all those kind of things, having those kind of things is mine. The quality control and also the quality assessment tool is about seeds, the seed. One of the things that we almost most of the time overlook at it, and it has been some debate, because very recently I was discussing with some colleague even in Australia, when I participate to the African Plant Breeder Association, is where should we stop as breeder? But I told them that for the demand-led plant breeding perspective and conception, the breeder is the enabler. Even though we are not asking a breeder to be a seed system specialist, but in the whole system, in the whole pipeline, the breeder has to link with people that are also dealing with seed system. That's why in the product profile, as Similish was explaining, you have a kind of multiple team. The team that compose the product profile is really very key. But we don't want also the breeder to just step back behind and say that I've released my variety. This variety is, then I don't care what has happened. I think that that's what we have been doing over years and years. And then I don't think that it has also reached the, let's say, our final objective, because that's the reason why we produce the variety and then they are not being picked up. We did recently a survey with, with our alumni. Yeah, we found something like even in the, let's say, past 6 years, we are almost something like at least 500 to, let's say, to 900 variety that have been released but are sitting there on the pipeline. Why people are not using them? And we think that one of the things that was missing is this one. How do you do it? And then that's why the second big objective of our product profile is really to take those varieties that are already on this pipeline and using the version, let's say the aspect of the product profile, which is the communication tool to do it. That's why we are also interacting with our let's say partners and also alumni for them to develop product profile of variety already released, because this one will serve as a communication tool. The over product profile that we'll be developing now to conduct the breeding program and how to be translated into the breeding program is really too different. And again, as I was saying, when we are doing those kind of things, split breeding or shuttle breeding, those ones are just key to make things go faster. What do you do to reduce the length, the cycle? And then next, I'm just going to talk something that is not really very common, and we are talking about monitoring and evaluation. As we were saying, for this one, we have to identify key performance indicators so that we can see how good are we doing, how best really are we doing. But what's happened in those kind of things, sometimes it might be really very complicated, so that even from the beginning, this one is one option to have a kind of special packaging, branding, so that this product can be differentiated on the market like you are having there. But sometimes if the grain or those kind of things are not really typically different from what is there, yeah, what the idea is to think about it, that even from the beginning when you are breeding, can you introduce a marker trait that is really going to be a marker for this product that will be developed? It's also something that is really key. And then even for this one, I think that since it's a kind of threat for you to identify your variety, yeah, you can give him low index selection. It does not mean that the threat is not important, but you put less weight on those this threat, but the threat has to be there. At least the mandatory things is the threat to be there, but you just put low weight on this threat, so that at least you can have the threat and then proceed a bit further. Yeah, what here is just to share what some of our alumni have been doing. Yeah, we can see that even for the product profile is one of the key things, as Shimelis was explaining, and then that's why this one was really put in on purpose. You can see that, okay, I try my best to have most of the Nigerian partners who might be part of even on the Nigerian Plant Breeder Association here from on the first slide. Then the product profile is really very key, and Professor Andrew Fisher is really developing several product profile even for rice. We are even discussing for overcrop that it might be different. And again, yeah, Dr. Bumi, yeah, was here. We developed use mass also to complement conventional breeding and to breed for cassava resistance in cassava, and also for high beta carotene content. Meaning those kind of things, yeah, they look simple, but also they also works. With Dr. Daniel Adiwale, yeah, we are having this one also is a kind of orphan crop, and we got the let's say to take the challenge even to develop the reference genome of African yam bean. African yam bean, for people who might not know, is a weird crop. You have both. You have also grain like bean, and you have also tuber like cassava or those kind of things. Then this crop, every time that I see it, it has really is amazing. But of course, you have so many anti-nutritional factors. Even being a kind of interesting crop, you have also the portraits. But then we are trying to solve the problem using NGS technology, or let's say smart breeding. With a blessing, yeah, we are having a kind of genome-wide association study to develop some CASPR marker that are associated to common bean resistant for bean improvement. Yeah, you can see that what I'm trying to show here is like each person here is covering one part of what is about to set the breeding program, if a strong breeding pre-breeding program, and then to proceed even further. Yeah, We have one of our, I put an example of one of our alumni here who is really applying the demand and breeding principle in tomato, which is really mature Yunan, but there are many of them. Yeah, with Dr. Luca Awata, yeah, against those small breeding, those new technology that we are having, yeah, we use them efficiently also, and associated with mark-assisted backcrossing also to progress some MLM, male lethal necrosis into subsistent variety. And with Dr. Aster, I put up here this example because we did a whole study just to identify the best parent to cross. It's just kind of amazing. I'm just, because I just want to put an emphasis on those. It's not a waste of time. It's not like we are not really progressing. Of course, we can do everything when we understand those kind of things and we identify the parents, but how to do that. Because when you identify the parent, yeah, the cross, the combination that we are going to do is much more easier. But let's say that if the best parent is not there, if you don't know how about the general ability and the specific combining ability of those kind of, let's say, parental lines, you cannot do it. That's why doing it is really very key. Yes, again, I was talking about diversity. If there is no diversity, I think that plant breeding is there. Then understanding allele diversity in breed wheat. Can say have been made by a duo of two people, one working in Kenya and one even being, let's say, Ethiopian. Then, yeah, this is one of the key things why I put up those kind of example to say that it's really very key. Diversity, maintaining diversity, and also keeping or looking for it or generating is really very key. I just want to really conclude my talk, but by saying this one: how to mitigate the drawing back covariate in breeding. We all know in breeding what is covariate. Covariate is a variate that in most cases we are not directly using them, or let's say considering them. While unfortunately those variable or those variates are really very key. And I show also this picture for us to see. You can see that those two fishermen that were doing, one is there fishing. Of course, it doesn't get anything. The other guy is there now, very happy getting it. I'm quite sure that if I ask which side will you want to be, most of us or most yeah, will be choosing being in the right side. But for me, I will tell you none of them. Because what's happened to the guy who is currently having is he was just lucky. Because if he was sitting from the other side, he was not able, you going to do like the other guys who is there, being cautious, open big eyes and then fishing, and unfortunately, he's not going to get anything, no matter the time that you be spending there. That is exactly what we don't want to do breeding blindly, to do breeding by chance, or those kind of things. That's why I do insist that one of the drawback covariates that we should deal with is really build a kind of strong foundation when you want to do breeding. And this strong foundation, I think that is really for the breeding. What is one of the covariates that I want really to put an emphasis on it is really have the right approach, meaning breeding smartly. This one also is good. What do you do? Because after those kind of things, you have to really to have the right approach. And then breeding smartly is doing what? Is really breeding with a human face, meaning applying the DLB principle. Why do I think that applying the DLB principle while doing breeding is breeding with a human face? When you are breeding and you are considering, for example, the gender issues into your breeding, when you are considering, for example, the impact of how this product that you are developing will be serving it will be serving women, and also will be serving even it will be serving even the small order farmers, because that's what we always try to say that we are doing those ones for the smallholder farmers. But at the end of the day, when we breed the thing, we are not having this one in kind of big, let's say, taking this one based in account. That's why I think that when we are going to have those kind of things, and the demanded breeding approach puts a strong emphasis on the gender, including the gender lens into our breeding program. And again, even the seed system is also key, that we have really to provide seed for people. Is no way, if we develop a very good variety and there is no seed for that, there is no, let's say, people partner for them to multiply and to disseminate it for it to be cultivated, meaning they have not done anything. For there, I just want for you to come and join me have this dream, that I hope that one day, like as Martin Luther King was saying, that we are no longer to talk about conventional breeding, smart breeding, DLB. We are just going to do breeding, including all what we have been discussing here. Because I know that this kind of conventional breeding was conventional because of a certain period where we don't have enough technology. Technology was difficult. But now that we have all the technology that we can apply them, I think we should no longer talk about conventional breeding. The new way of doing breeding should be breeding. That's become non-conventional, because maybe in 10-year time being, what we call smart breeding or everything will now become conventional. Then I really want to thank you for your attention, and also thank also all our collaborators. Shimelis have already insisted on them. They are the one who make this one happen. Since 2014, we have been going a long way, and then we think that the future is bright with DLB. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Yao. And thanks for the word you left us with, that rather than saying conventional breeding, smart breeding, why don't we say we do breeding and doing that smartly too, using all the techniques and all the information available to us, so that we don't do our breeding blindly, but rather to maximize the opportunities we have in terms of the diversity available, and also target the needs of the market. Thank you very much for that very stimulating and interesting presentation. Now, just for your information, Dr. Yao, I know you were busy making presentation. Perhaps you can take a look at the chat box at your end and see some of the questions that are being directed at you. We like to go to the Q&A session now, but before that, I think we have a short presentation from the Vice President of our Nigerian Plant Breeders Association, Professor Victor Aditimiri. Would like to have a short presentation. I gathered that. Prof, I can't really see you here. I guess you are somewhere. If you don't mind, maybe I'll coordinate with Mohammed if you're going to make a slide presentation, or you present directly. Prof?
Prof, I guess he's not online. Can we go ahead with the Q&A session? When he comes back online, then we can give him the opportunity.
Okay, thanks because I'm unable to see him online here. Right, thanks so much. We have had a very wonderful presentation from distinguished scientists, experts that are leading the way into this new frontier. And it is our hope that indeed, even before 2050, we should be well ready. And we have this wonderful tool of the DLB, which in the word of Dr. Yao, maybe we'll call it breeding smartly. Yeah. And like Professor Shimeli said earlier on, Africa should not miss out of this revolution. We did with the Green Revolution, but with DLB, I think it cuts the time we get to the market. And and also enable us to take right stuff to the market, not just junks. And like he said today, I think there's a new perspective now. We said the old perspective, all we all learned was that plant breeding is both a science and an art. And here today, I think we can confidently post that it is not only science and art, it is also a business, in the word of Professor Shimelis. And on that note, we'd like to go to the Q&A session, and that I'm sure Professor Shimelis has gone through. We've been communicating behind, and we'd like to address those questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have noted some of the feedback and the suggestions, and I really thank for everyone for dropping the feedback and thoughts. We really appreciate that. I think there are some questions that I want to respond to. I have picked few, and let me react for that. And I will also give, when necessary, to Nasser to talk about. So the first question was about the traits issue, combining traits, because in plant breeding, we really target many traits at the same time. So when we consider many traits and many characters, how do we follow the principles of demand-led breeding? I'm sure some of you, if you have followed with Nasser's, that small table, the chart he showed, he discussed about trait prioritization. I think in fact, in demand-led breeding, we really strongly recommend that you prioritize your traits. You can't do everything possible. You can, in fact, sometimes you just forget what is the market, what is needed in the market, and you do your own breeding. You check on the issues of some plant attributes which are not needed by the market. So there are two guiding aspects for demand-led breeding in order for your trait to focus on which trait must I focus. The first guideline is the market. Is this trait or are these traits really needed by the market? It means, do the farmers or the market looking forward for these traits? That is really a simple answer. And then how do you know that? You need to do a little bit of market survey or market segments. Here we need the socioeconomists. They will tell us, this is what we need. This is what you have to breed. And the socioeconomists with the breeder can do those market segments or the marketing potential. Actually, it's just a simple, the concept is simple. It's just how many farmers are interested in your traits, but to what areas, to what agroecologies are the new varieties to be grown at, and for what traits? Is it for yield, drought or heat stress tolerance? Is it for disease resistance or striga tolerance? You name it. So that's where now the demand-led breeding is, you don't breed from the scratch. Don't assume that these are the needs of the farmers. You should go into the system, into the farming system through DLB techniques, especially through market segmentation, and identify the key traits. So it's really, really, really important. Because, you know, as Nasser was trying to mention, breeding has procedures. In plant breeding, we follow procedures. The first procedure is now to choose our parents. Which parents should be chosen in the breeding program? So you should be guided by DLB procedures. At the same time, as Nasser was saying, the genomic tools, the either phenotyping or genotyping and others. But when you choose the parents, let's choose for the correct parents with the traits of interest, with phenotyping method, genotyping, and I know also someone was also considering epigenetics or the mutation breeding technique. All those are the first step of our procedure, in that we choose the right parents. Let's choose the right parents. When you choose the parents, they should have the ideal traits or genes of interest. So I think that way, then we can combine traits or many traits at the same time but let's focus on the market. Let's really focus on the market, not on our own thinking, or let's not assume this is what's needed in the market. Because ultimately, after you breeding, after you took all those time, in the end, it's not taken by the market. It's not adopted. It doesn't have any impact as such. So that's what I want to say about combining traits. Then the monitoring, learning, and evaluation. Someone asked me, really, what's the function of that? When do we use it? I think in demand-led breeding, monitoring and learning evaluation should start from the first procedure to the end. Remember, when you write a breeding project for funding, you follow steps, timelines, right? You follow timelines from stage 1, stage 2, and so on. So each stage of your breeding should be evaluated. You should put performance indicators. What do I do now? And what are my outputs or outcomes from that process? So monitoring and evaluation should be from the onset of your breeding up to commercialization. It should be all the way. And it shouldn't be complicated, by the way. You don't need auditors or accountants to do that. You can have some parameters to do that in the breeding program. But what's needed is that you should be accountable for your own outputs and outcomes. And that should be gained through monitoring and evaluation. Then someone, I think Dr. Mashilo asked about the business of plant breeding and considering the small scale farmers. It's really very important to note. However, if I compare what's going on in South Africa and other Eastern Africa or Western Africa, it's really a little bit different. The business, the South Africa model is a private sector, and the private seed industry is well established. The market system is really intact, so which is an excellent system. Actually, that's where we learn from other African countries should learn in terms of upscaling our breeding programs and our seed systems. There is a big lesson from South Africa. But in other smallholder systems, I think what we said is this: they are not getting the right varieties. They are not getting the correct varieties. That's why they don't adopt it. They still insist to stick to the land races or the local varieties, which are not improved for yield and yield components. So what we say is that in demand-led breeding, let's bring them what do they need. Let's consult them. Let's consult their value chain. Let's consult with the farmers or the clients. What do they need? Then, and for what purpose they need that? Is it for marketing? Is it for the household use? And what type of attributes? Are they looking for yield gain or for quality? And so that's what we are aiming. But in order for our breeding to break even, right? To break even or to get some gain, economic gain out of that, it means that we need to have the market. Remember, the market is the defining factor for us to succeed. So we should know what market. You know, you are not looking at market in the end. You should be starting it from the onset. You know, when you start your breeding, when you initiate your breeding, you should know the market from the onset. Otherwise, you really are not in a good shape, because ultimately you breed, you develop all the steps. Now you want to give it to the farmers. Then they say, no, this is not what I want. Or for that matter, you should have been also, you know, there are other breeders competing you, and then you cannot really reach out them with the correct varieties. So what we say is that really what we teach in most sub-Saharan African breeding program is that let's make our breeding demand-led, demand-oriented, and so that in the end we can be successful in commercializing. And I think I stressed about the business of it, because plant breeding really is an opportunity. Honestly, it's an opportunity to have a business. Look really how much proportion of smallholder farmers are growing now crops and livestock. They are the ones, I mean, they are the leaders of our economy. They lead the economy really, because they are the ones who supply the products, the food in the food systems. So in order to empower them, They needed those new varieties, modern varieties. And then when we develop them, then they should be able to adopt them. They should be able to grow them and use them to influence themselves in the marketplace at large. And demand-led breeding, you see, it's not like participatory breeding. In participatory breeding, it focused on the local context. But if you see that the DLB, it checks on the local area first, see your local circumstance, look around also at regional, within the same country, at a country level. Look if it's in Southern Africa, look also, target the SADC region, target it around your area. And then go to East Africa, Central Africa, West Africa. So demand-led breeding it's about breeding for the local community, for the region, for the continent, ultimately also for the international market. Didn't you see the slides showing about the bean, the export of the bean corridor, the bean varieties to the Middle East? There is much needed by those varieties in Africa. So it's really that concept. The capacity development, Nasser, you will give a little bit about it. And Professor Shehu, you indicated about the ideotype breeding and demand-led breeding. I hope from my conversations, my earlier conversations, you picked some ideas that in terms of the ideotype breeding, we used to focus based on the resources and information within the breeding program in ideotype breeding. So mostly the breeders decide the traits, they decide what is the ideal, the most suitable or ideotype was decided by the breeder. But now we're saying that in order to reach out the market segment, a big market area, then we need to follow the demand-led breeding procedures. So it's a little bit different from the ideotype breeding, because it involves now many stakeholders, really, from production to consumption. So we target the value chain in demand-led breeding. So that's what I can say, Prof. Shehu. I hope you understand me. Then Nasser will also answer another question, because Nasser presented the breeding. Actually, Nasser's presentation was also interesting, that it was, in fact, it was good for the breeders in that when you follow the breeding procedures, so when you do the breeding, these are the areas where demand-led breeding theories, principles can apply. Really, it's a very good connection, Nasser. But the question asked by a gentleman or a woman is this. In your smart breeding, you focused on the phenotyping and the genotyping methods, but there are some epigenetics or epigenomics that you should consider, including, say, some mutagenesis and mutant genes. So how do you account those in your program? So these are the questions I left: the capacity development and the issue of epigenetics and epigenomics. Nasser.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shemilis, for the answer provided, and also to pass me the floor to answer some of the few questions that was also asked. Yeah, the presentation really focused on those kind of what I can call the technique, the molecular breeding technique. I did not really give some details about all the technique that should be used. But in any case, when we talk about smart breeding, it's really go beyond the normal stuff that we are doing. Even I can say that it even include going beyond even epigenetic and even epigenomic to even include pangenomic, because when we are developing, for example, now some, how do you call it, reference genome, for example, what we do usually is to use maybe one variety or very few variety, and then try to sequence them and then made up the, how do you call it, the reference genome based on those kind of things. But now the idea is really to go between, even if they are from the same species, go to even the same, let's say, how do you call genus, and then developing onto this kind of, how do you call the reference genome. Because how we reference is reference, because we know that sometimes if your reference is not good, it's like, or it's what we are going to refer everything to when we are going to compare everything to when we are doing those kind of even, how do you call it? Genotyping, then it's really go beyond epigenetic and even epigenomic, those kind of aspects that we are just, because currently what we are having is things that are really key when you are having a breeding into a totally different background that is a background that is totally different. You can see that now in this case, even the epigenomic effect or even the epigenomic effect might be really very, very, very huge, very, very big. And then that's the reason why in the whole setting, those kind of things should really, really, really be considered. In one and a thing, when we talk about even gene editing, maybe mainly talking about CRISPR, the CRISPR-Cas9 technology, those one will be one of the things that should be explored. In the DLB approach, what we do is when we want to develop something, and you have done your market survey and you are foresee, for example, some issue coming, how to overcome it. On the for the first on module, that is visioning and foresight, that's how you create scenario to say that if you have this case, what would be the alternative? And at the end of the day, one of the key things that also I want to stress on it, when you see the mean that you have, all the mean, I mean, in terms of money, in terms of genomic, in terms of resources, if you see that is not possible for you to do it, don't do it. It's really key, because we think that it's not because you have done a market survey that you are, or you have our product profile, everything that we should translate it into breeding program. Before translating into breeding program, that's why you build your business case. Is it feasible? Is it feasible? This one is key. Then when you say that is feasible, okay, because of ABCD, then you go. Later on, somebody asks a question about even this monitoring and evaluation. Even in, over this process, you have also to check, am I doing really the right thing? Am I on the good track? If not, either you reverse or if need be, you stop. This one also is really very key for people also to understand. It's like also breeding with multiple traits. Okay, you cannot breed with all traits. It's not even possible. The alternative that we try to offer in DLB is for you to have several market segments, meaning developing those traits that you are having, you split them into different variety, targeting a specific market segment. Yeah, this one also is really key, and we should have this one in mind to say that no, we cannot breed a variety, let's say have a variety that we're going to have all the trade, because sometimes it does not make even economic sense. And again, when we talk about the small order farmer and also the GLB, in most cases, we made a big mistake also. When a farmer said that I want this trade, this one is willing to have the trade, but ask him, why does he want the trade? Because sometimes it's just a kind of misinformation. He thinks that having this threat will give him this kind of advantage. And it's key when we are doing this kind of survey with even the farmer, always ask him why. Why do you want the threat? Why do you think that the threat is important? Because he can tell you, I want more yield because I'm going to get, let's say, more money. Selling more, going to give me more money. But if you are able to convince him that, okay, that's what you can get for the yield, but if we create this variety for this specific market, for this specific product that is really very haunted, that people like, they are going to buy even this one at a unit price, at a higher price, as a premium price. We have some examples, for example, in tomato. The same tomato, depending on what it is, the type of tomato that it is having let's say premium price. Meaning in this case, if the aim of the farmer is to have money, he could get this money elsewhere rather than going to breed for a trade that is maybe not easy. Here I took the case of yield, which in most cases is not easy. Then those kind of the thing that it should be good also really to do, and then to have it. Yeah. DLB, regarding the IDO type, DLB in most cases, as we were saying, goes beyond everything. Because when you talk about DLB, there are non-technical stuff related to breeding that DLB will really consider. When we talk about even M&E, even when we talk about branding, I talk about it. When you put the variety on the market, how do you brand? How do you make it? How do you do really this follow-up? Because you have to know. And one of the key things for DLB is the variety replacement. Maybe it has not come clearly when we're presenting, but there is a strong aspect on variety replacement. Then, if you don't follow the variety to see how the variety is doing, how well or how bad it's doing, and then so that at least you can take a decision to say that, okay, let me stop this variety. But meaning, in the meantime, you are preparing to produce something that are a bit more higher quality than what is there. Yeah, those are the things that I want really to stress on it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yao. Really appreciate all that response and your intervention. We are running late now. We'll soon like to wrap up. It's 2 minutes after 12 here in Nigeria. We had a wonderful session with the experts, our leading experts on demand-led breeding. And thanks for really bringing this to light. Indeed, if you look at, as a way of summarizing what we have so far, if you really look at it, just like Professor Shimeli said earlier on, in earlier days, all of us, when we came into plant breeding, we just took it as a career. And so, okay, oh, and all that. And then you were wondering, oh, where will I get employed after I've done this? Yes, apart from the fun of it, I mean, seeing variability, exploiting variability. Now, the axiom was plant breeding. I remember that it's one of the first questions you ask the undergrad student. We should define whether is plant breeding a science or an art. As a teacher, you ask. So he has to defend that it's both a science and also an art. Now there's a third leg of it, which is actually the ultimate. It is now a business. So as a teacher, as a plant breeding teacher, we really need to incorporate this. Just looking at some of the highlights of the points mentioned. I think for the future, we really need to incorporate this into our curriculum. And in this regard, I'm sure our demand-led breeding organization will try to intensify, possibly good enough. It's now the textbook can be downloaded on the website. Yes. So that I think those of us in charge of developing capacity should really let our mentees get to know this while we also train ourselves. So that, like Dr. Yao, we will be able to really lead our students to really know that this is an important aspect of it. On behalf of our president, Professor Chidozie Gessi, and a member of the executive committee of Nigerian Plant Breeders Association, I really want to express his appreciation to you both for taking your time, you know, and really, I mean, having us to really enjoy and further understand this. For me as a person, in 2019, I was in that room, that workshop, and I think I was lucky enough to get the textbook. And I was lucky enough to get a textbook, and I think really good. So I know. So I have it here, and I encourage all our colleagues to go to the website, download this. It's very good, because ultimately, and if you know the recent, in Nigeria, for example, the PVP, Plant Variety Act have been enacted, approved. So which shows it opens us opportunities for us here to really be able to utilize this, breed for the market, and make the necessary impact. And we can also use this to encourage our small-scale farmers. Imagine having a variety that are demanded in huge amount from the Middle East Mediterranean that can create a whole business and empower our smallholders growing this particular variety, you know, and plant breeding indeed, from what we have established from this, plant breeding is indeed, we can call it a business, not just a science and art, but also a business. And we encourage our colleagues. I'm sure we can further interact with you through the website, and possibly, I guess on your slides, you dropped your contact details, your emails, and if not, you can please drop it on the chat, in the chat box, for our colleagues to be able to interact with you. On this note, we'd like to hand it back to our Mr. Mohammed, who is helping to anchor this program. One last word, please. Mr. President, Professor Egesi, our president, just told us to watch out in a few weeks for the big Congress that will be taking place very soon. So we're all prepared towards that. This is for those of us here, members of the NPBA. I'm sure we'll also invite you at some point. Thank you very much. I know we've had a wonderful time. I now hand over the mic to the PRO of NPBA, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Ekpopodion. It's been a wonderful session, and I'm sure our participants are very glad that they joined us today for this really exciting webinar. And we can't thank our presenters enough, Professor Hussein Shimelis, who, by the way, I have to mention, is my PhD supervisor. And the first time I had an interaction with this demand-led breeding was when I was his student. And he was the first to expose me to it. So I saw a different side of plant breeding, not just a science and art, but also a business. And fortunately, Dr. Yao too, I haven't been opportune to see him physically, but I did my genotyping in their lab, and I was a little bit curious and why he didn't put me up in that picture, because so just lightly, I also did work with him. So it's very exciting, and we thank our presenters once again. We thank the moderator, Professor Peter Ekpopodion, who is from the University of Calabar. He's a cocoa breeder. Professor Shimelis is from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. And Dr. Yao is the coordinator of the demand-led breeding. He is based in Kenya. So our participants are not just from the Nigerian Plant Breeders Association. We have participants cutting across the continent and some outside the continent, especially from India. We thank you very much for joining this webinar. And we hope that in the future, when we organize another webinar, you would join us. And we hope and look forward to your contributions, your suggestions, your questions, because those are the things that enrich the webinar. Thank you very much. I don't know if Professor Ado is around. Professor Shehu Garhi Ado, who is the former director of the Institute for Agricultural Research. Prof, can you unmute yourself? So regarding the conference proceedings, the presentations and the recordings, we'll put together everything. Since we have the information of all registered participants, we'll send an email to them with the link for this very recording, and also the PowerPoint presentation of our two speakers. So don't worry yourself, we have your emails and we are going to link you up. Professor Shehu Garki Ado, we are hearing you, sir. So Professor S.G. Ado will give the closing remark. Thank you very much, Prof. And just an introduction,
Okay.
he is the former executive director of the Institute for Agricultural Research, Samaru, that's based in Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. It's one of the oldest research institutes in Nigeria. And this year, it will be celebrating 100 years since its establishment. Professor S.J. Ado, you're welcome, sir, for the closing remark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rislan, for giving me the opportunity to make a closing remark. Well, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to the organizers of these very important presentations on plant breeding. The presentation, as we can see from the reports of the members, has been very, very educative. And it has been, well, we don't expect anything less from Professor Shimelis and Professor Yao. So thank you very much for the presentation. It has increased our knowledge and brought new ideas to the plant breeding aspects. Yes, so without taking much of the time, once more, I would like to thank the organizers and the presenters and all of us who have listened attentively to those presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. With this, we've come to the end of today's webinar. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. To our presenters, thank you and have a lovely day. Professor Shimelis, Professor Dr. Yao, and our moderator, Professor Aikpokpodian. Thank you very much. We are closing now.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, bye for now.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Prof. We'll contact after us.
We can now